Hey, my name is Walter. I'm 33 years old and I live in Millbrook, Vermont. I fix furnaces and water heaters for a living. It's not the kind of job that makes for good stories at dinner parties. Most days I'm on my knees in somebody's basement, breathing in dust and old copper, listening for the sound a burner makes right before it dies. I know the smell of a cracked heat exchanger the way some men know coffee. My hands are always a little scraped up. My truck smells like solder and wet flannel. I didn't always live alone. I had a wife. Ellen. 3 years ago I got a phone call at 2 in the morning. A truck ran a light on Route 9. That's the whole story. No warning, no last words, no chance to say anything back to her. One sentence from a stranger on the phone and my life folded up like a bad hand of cards. I still went to work the next week. People said that was strength. It wasn't. I just didn't know what else to do with my hands. Here's the thing nobody tells you about grief. It's not loud. It doesn't knock you down in the grocery store, not after the first few months. It just sits there, quiet, like a pilot light you forgot was burning. You go about your day. You pay your bills. You fix somebody's furnace and drive home and eat something out of a can standing at the counter because sitting at the table alone felt worse. I stopped opening the curtains in the front room. Not on purpose. I just noticed one day, maybe 6 months in, that I hadn't touched them in a while. Ellen used to open them first thing, every morning, rain or shine. She said a house needed to breathe. I kept doing small things like that. Not opening the curtains. Not planting anything in the beds out back, because she was the one who knew what went where. Not changing the ringtone on my phone, even though it still said her name sometimes when old messages synced back through. People in town are kind to me in the careful way people are kind to 'em and they don't know what to say to. They ask how I'm doing and I say fine and they nod like they believe me because it's easier for both of us that way. I used to want things. A bigger shop. A dog, maybe. Kids someday. I stopped wanting things the way a man stops opening windows in winter, not all at once, just quietly, one pane at a time, until the whole house is sealed up tight and you tell yourself that's just how you like it now. That was where I was standing when the phone rang about a dead furnace out at the old Hollis place. The Hollis cottage had been empty for 2 years before somebody finally rented it. Old place, drafty, furnace older than I was. I wasn't surprised when it quit in the middle of a cold snap. The woman who called sounded tired in a way that had nothing to do with the hour. Said her name was Claire. Said there was no heat and her daughter was cold and could somebody please come today, not next week. I told her I'd be there within the hour. I always say that. Sometimes it's true. She was standing on the porch when I pulled up, arms crossed against the cold, a duffel bag still sitting by the door like she hadn't fully decided to unpack it. Little girl beside her, maybe 6 or 7, wrapped in a coat 2 sizes too big, holding a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. Claire had the kind of tired eyes that don't come from one bad night. Hair pulled back but coming loose at the temples. Hands doing something even while she stood still, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve, over and over, like her fingers needed a job even when the rest of her had run out of energy. "It's the furnace," she said. It made a noise and then nothing. I went down to the basement. Cracked thermocouple, easy fix, the kind of thing that takes 20 minutes and a part one already had in the truck. While I worked I could hear her upstairs, moving around, talking low to her daughter, the floorboards creaking under careful footsteps like she was trying not to make noise in a house that wasn't hers yet. When I came back up the furnace was ticking warm again. Claire had her arms crossed the same way, standing near the window, watching the road like she expected somebody to come up it who she didn't want to see. "You're not from around here," I said. Not really a question. "No," she said. That was all. She didn't offer more, and I didn't ask. I've learned that people carry things the way I carry mine, folded up small, tucked in a coat pocket, not for sharing. She had the look of someone running, though I couldn't have told you from what. It wasn't fear exactly. More like a woman bracing for a knock on the door that hadn't come yet. Her daughter, Mia, she said her name was, quiet as anything, stood in the kitchen doorway and watched me pack up my tools. She didn't say a word the whole time. Just watched, the way kids do when they're deciding something about you that they haven't told anyone yet, maybe not even themselves. Claire paid me in cash, counted out careful, and thanked me twice like she wasn't used to things going right. I told her to call if it acted up again. She said she would. I didn't think much more about it, driving home past the frozen fields, radio off, heater blowing warm air onto hands that still smelled like solder. I didn't know yet that furnace would bring me back to that porch more than once. I went back out to the Hollis place 3 days later to check the fix had held. That turned into checking on the water heater the week after. That turned into an arrangement neither of us called an arrangement. I'll keep an eye on the place, I told her, standing in her kitchen with my cap in my hands. Pipes, furnace, whatever needs looking at. You've got enough going on. She studied me a second, arms crossed. I don't need charity. It's not charity. I've got a truck full of parts and nothing better to do most evenings. She thought about it. Asked one question, how much it would cost her, month to month. I told her I'd rather trade than bill her, maybe some cooking now and then, since I ate out of cans more than a grown man should. She didn't smile at that, not yet, but something in her shoulders came down half an inch. Fine, she said. Monday then. That was how it started. Monday, and then most days after. Mia decided about me before her mother did. Second week, I was under the kitchen sink fixing a slow drip, and she crouched down next to me without a word and handed me a drawing. A stick figure with a wrench, standing next to a house with smoke coming out the chimney in a crooked line. That's you, she said, like it was obvious, and walked off before I could thank her. Claire's guard came down slower. But it came down. There was an evening in March, wind rattling the windows, when I was trying to explain to Mia why a furnace makes the sound it does, some story about a dragon sleeping in the basement that breathes warm air instead of fire. I got the ending wrong on purpose, said the dragon was afraid of vegetables, and Mia laughed so hard she nearly dropped her cup. Claire laughed too. Not a polite sound. Loud and sudden, the kind that filled the whole kitchen and surprised her as much as it surprised me. She put a hand over her mouth like she wanted to take it back, but it was already out there, already real. First real laugh I'd heard from her. I didn't say anything. Just kept working on that ridiculous dragon story until Mia was laughing too hard to sit still. Later that same week I was showing her how to relight the pilot light herself, in case I wasn't around some cold night. Our hands ended up close together over the valve, her fingers brushing mine as she reached for the switch. Neither of us pulled away right off. I felt it more than I wanted to admit, a kind of warmth that had nothing to do with the furnace. I went still. Didn't say anything. Neither did she. We just finished the job, and I drove home that night with the radio off again, thinking about a laugh I hadn't earned but couldn't stop hearing anyway. Something was growing under all that careful distance. Neither of us was ready to name it yet. It happened at the spring supper the church puts on every year, tables set up in the fellowship hall, casseroles lined up like a buffet of everybody's grandmother's recipes. Claire came because Mia wanted to go, and I came because by then I mostly went where they went. Donna Pruitt found us by the coffee urn. Donna's husband ran the feed store before he passed, and she'd taken it upon herself since then to know everybody's business better than they knew it themselves. She had a way of smiling that didn't reach anywhere near her eyes. Claire, is it, she said, loud enough for the tables nearby to catch it. Funny, I made some calls. Asked around about the Hollis renter. She let that sit a second. Seems there was some trouble back where you came from. A little girl, not this one, got hurt, and you were the one who was supposed to be watching. Foster placement, wasn't it? Lost your license over it. The room went quiet the way a room does right before something breaks. Claire's face didn't move much, but her hands did. She pressed them flat against the table like she needed something solid under them. That's not what happened, she said, voice steady but low. That's not what the paperwork says, Donna said, and smiled again. I stepped up beside Claire. Not behind her. I didn't say a word for her, she didn't need me speaking on her behalf, but I stood close enough that Donna's smile flickered when she looked at the two of us together. You got something to say to me, Donna, you can come by the shop, I said, calm, quiet, no heat in it at all. This isn't the place. Donna's mouth tightened. For just a second, something raw showed through the smugness, a flash of old grief, maybe, something about a niece or a nephew she'd lost custody of once. I never did find out for sure. Then she gathered herself back up and walked off toward the dessert table like she'd won something. Claire didn't cry, not there. She held it until we were outside in the parking lot, Mia already half asleep against her shoulder. I was a caseworker, she said, staring at nothing. I saw signs in a home visit and I hesitated. I was afraid of being wrong. By the time anyone acted, it was too late for that little girl. They didn't fire me. I quit. I couldn't do it anymore, be the person who's supposed to see and doesn't. I believe you, I said. 3 words. Nothing more. She looked at me like she wasn't used to being believed. Driving her home, headlights cutting through the dark, she went quiet, and I noticed her turning something over, a name Donna had said, a detail about the family, a street. Something about it had caught in her like a hook, though she didn't say why. I didn't ask. Not yet. But I filed it away, the way you file away a sound that doesn't belong in a machine. The storm came in hard on a Thursday, first real cold snap after that supper. Power lines went down out past the county road, and half of Millbrook lost electricity by 9 that night. I was already at the cottage when it happened, dropping off a part for the water heater, and I stayed because the roads had turned to ice and I wasn't about to send Claire and Mia through that alone with no lights. The furnace, of course, picked that night to fail completely. Not the thermocouple this time. Something deeper, a cracked heat exchanger, the kind of thing that needs a part one didn't have in the truck. I worked by flashlight in that basement for 20 minutes trying everything I knew, hands going numb, before I had to climb back up and tell her the truth. It's not fixing tonight, I said. Mia was already shivering under 3 blankets on the couch. Claire's face had that look people get when they're doing math on how bad things are about to get. I didn't think about it. Body moved before my mind caught up. I hauled the mattress off the guest bed into the front room next to the wood stove, got a fire going with kindling from the shed, dragged every blanket in the house into a pile. Claire helped without a word, moving fast beside me, and somewhere in all that Mia finally stopped shivering and fell asleep between us on the floor by the fire. After that, it was just the 2 of us, sitting close to the stove, breathing. Something had spilled from the pipe under the sink during the mess and the floor was still wet by the kitchen doorway. Wind kept throwing itself against the windows. I looked her up, Claire said quietly, out of nowhere. The girl. From that night at the church supper. The one Donna mentioned. I looked at her. Her last name was Hargrove, Claire said. Same as the family your wife used to volunteer with, before. I remembered you mentioning it once. It's probably nothing. It's probably a coincidence. It wasn't nothing. Ellen had spent 2 years working with the Hargrove kids through the church, before she died, before any of this. I sat with that a long moment, feeling something shift that I didn't have words for yet, some thread running between the woman I lost and the woman sitting beside me now. I don't know when it started, I said, and my voice came out rougher than I meant it to. Somewhere between the dragon story and tonight, I think. When I thought about you 2 out here alone in the cold, Mia stirred in her sleep and made a small sound, and I lost the rest of the sentence. Didn't matter. Claire was already looking at me like she'd heard the whole thing anyway. She didn't say anything back. She reached over and took my hand, the one still cold from the basement, and held it against her own, like she was trying to warm something that had been cold a long time. We sat like that until the fire burned low and the storm outside finally quieted. 6 months later, and the Hollis place doesn't feel like the Hollis place anymore. We just call it home now. The furnace that started all this still runs down in that basement, same cracked old unit I patched back up after the storm, good as new with the right part finally in it. I hear it kick on some mornings, that same low hum, and it doesn't sound like a chore anymore. It sounds like something that just belongs to us. Claire opens the curtains every morning now. First thing, before coffee, same as somebody else used to do a long time ago. I never told her that. She just does it because she says a house needs to breathe, and I let that be enough of an answer for both of us. We found out for certain, eventually, that the Hargrove girl Claire couldn't save was connected, distant but real, to the same family Ellen used to sit with on Tuesday afternoons all those years back. Neither of us fully understands what to make of that thread, how 2 broken things found their way to the same porch. We don't try to explain it much anymore. Some things you just carry together instead of figuring out. Mia turned 7 in the spring. She still keeps that one-eared rabbit on her bed, though these days it shares the pillow with a wooden fox I carved her out of a scrap of pine last winter, evenings by the stove, teaching myself as I went. Yesterday I was down in the basement doing nothing in particular, just tightening a fitting that didn't need tightening, when Mia came down the stairs without a word and sat on the bottom step to watch, same as she did the very first week I ever fixed anything in that house. "You gonna live here now?" she asked, like she already knew the answer and just wanted to hear me say it. "Looks that way," I said. She nodded, satisfied, like she'd settled something the grown-ups had been too slow to get to. Then she said, "Good. This house is warmer when you're in it," and went back upstairs before I could figure out what to say to that. That evening Claire and I stood in the kitchen, her drying dishes, me putting them away, the two of us moving around each other in that easy way people do once they've stopped keeping count of whose space is whose. The wood stove ticked in the front room. Mia's light-up sneakers flashed pink somewhere down the hall as she ran past. I thought about that first cold call, the porch, the duffel bag by the door. "Cold out there," Claire said, nodding toward the frost building on the window. "Warm enough in here," I said. She smiled at that, the real kind, and went back to drying the dish in her hands. I stood there a minute, just watching her, feeling something settle in my chest that had been unsettled for 3 long years. Outside, the wind picked up. Inside, the furnace hummed on, steady and low, exactly the way it should.